Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Comic Book Syndicate. It's been a while. We have managed to squeeze in only one movie review this year. Well, two actually. One was on the day that quarantine pretty much started. That was Bloodshot. Then we did The Guardians, the Russian film. Now we're back. It's the end of the summer. Obviously, COVID has disappeared from the face of the earth. We're good to go. So now we're going to review New Mutants. Just to be clear, this is an X-Men film. It was supposed to be one of the three last X-Men films, along with Deadpool 2 and Dark Phoenix, but they have delayed the film 5 times, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's finally come out. And just to quickly summarize it, this is the very first ever X-Men spin-off comic book that started in the early 80s. It was created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod, later taken over by Sal Buscema, and then later art was taken over by Bill Sienkiewicz, who really made the comic book a bestseller and gave it kind of its identity as it's known today. I grew up reading these characters. I love these characters. I love Chris Claremont. I love Bill Sienkiewicz. I love Bob McLeod. I love Sal Buscema. I've waited a very long time for this film to come out. Josh, let's talk about the hurdles that this film faced on its way to the theater.
Yeah, so the director Josh Boone went to Fox with this script back in about 2015. The pre-production started, and the first draft of the film was supposed to, lean into the X-Men a little bit more, and it originally involved Storm and James McAvoy's Professor X, but after Dark Phoenix kind of flopped, I think they went back and did some rewrites, but this was kind of like how I guess it had originally gotten approved. But yeah, after that, Fox didn't really like the whole horror aspect that Josh had originally planned. So they introduced kind of a little bit more of like the teenage like love aspect of the film. And then the film was then shot over 3 months. And they released the first trailer for the movie, and the trailer kind of leaned into the horror aspect that was still in the movie, and it got a huge response. Everybody loved it, and because of that, Fox decided to go back to Josh Boone and say, listen, we want you to kind of do some reshoots and lean more back to your original vision for the story. So that's kind of where it went back to the horror side. And all along while this is happening, this is also during the Disney acquisition of Fox. So it's kind of like all over the place how this happened. The movie was supposed to release in 2018, and then it wasn't released till 2 years later in 2020. And in between those 2 years of it kind of being in limbo, it had 5 different release dates. So yeah, it was kind of a little crazy. And the reshoots never ended up happening because of the Disney acquisition. And I think it was about 2019 they were supposed to do it, but then by that time the kids had aged too much even. And it's kind of a bummer because I feel like we didn't really get to see the full potential of what this movie was going to be. And they were originally supposed to make this into a trilogy of movies. And they even had like a special cameo plan that they were going to have for this movie. I don't know if you guys knew anything about that, but
Yes, John Hamm, right?
No, actually, John Hamm was supposed to be Mr. Sinister in Dark Phoenix, but they were going to have Antonio Banderas be Sunspot's dad in the sequel. So he was supposed to show up at the after credits, but then, that they didn't end up even filming that because Josh Boone had said, like, it's probably not going to make a sequel. So there wasn't really a point to kind of getting him on board. So yeah, anyways, I feel like it was really going to be a good movie, but because of everything going on with all the reshoots and like the production hell that it was just stuck in with the Disney thing, it just didn't really end up being exactly what it was, it had the potential to be.
So there's more to talk about. The movie has come out. There's a lot to say. I wish it would have came out 3 or 4 years ago when it was scheduled. G.I. Jolie, you saw this movie. What's your first impression of this film?
It was fine. I was actually really excited. In the very beginning, it's sort of like the hellscape with Danny, and you don't really know what's happening, and there's a lot of action. So I felt like I remember seeing the trailer and thinking, oh, they're gonna go like that horror route, and they're really gonna do it. And maybe I'm gonna be like not hereditary frightened, but like American Horror Story scared. So it's going to be like Ryan Murphy's sort of like tolerable horror vibes. But then nothing. It stopped and it never recovered.
Yeah, I apparently there was a few different influences. There was Breakfast Club, there was Stephen King, there was Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but those are all really good movies, and this was not.
But like, and it's so strange too, because it's like I feel like the director really got the character relationship thing down. I mean, his biggest claim to fame is being the director of A Fault in Our Stars. So the whole like teenage relationship drama, cool. I got that. Like, and it was a relationship drama. But it lost the horror vibe, and once it lost that horror vibe, it just like fell down and stayed down. But it stayed crouching and then crawling, but never fully getting back up. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think for me, it was that obviously I truly believe that the original intention was for it to be like a total like spin of like a horror movie, superhero horror, and then with kind of corporations or studio heads kind of getting their hands in the pot and switching things to what their vision of this movie is. I think that's where the trouble starts, because the beginning feels more along the lines of that like Breakfast Club thing, where it's like this like teen angst movie, and then towards the middle it kind of leans into the horror a little bit more than I thought it was going to. And then by the end of the movie, it's just a superhero like action ending. So like, I don't know, I feel like the tone is very disjointed from like beginning, middle, and end.
Here's the thing is that I appreciate what they were trying to do, which is do a very small scale film in a contained setting, right? Like, this is not New York being attacked by video game characters again. This is, I mean, you could take the mutants out of, like, the word mutants out of this movie, and it could still stand on its own as just a sort of horror, even though it's not really a horror. But we get what they were trying to do. But it was really hard to tell, but it felt too small scale and too, like, no vision and no confidence in the style of the film. Like, I think, I mean, I do like appreciate the relationship between the characters, but it felt like this director had no clue how to shoot anything, where to put anyone. But we could talk more about that a little bit later. But I do think he did a decent job, at least with the characters and the relationships between the characters. I don't know what you guys think, but if you want, do you want to talk about these characters now? I want to go through them really quickly. Usually we leave this for last. We're going to do this first here. So, like we said, New Mutants was created in the early 80s. Now, for those that don't know, X-Men was created as a school to teach mutants how to use their powers. That concept was quickly abandoned by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. The characters grew up, they got their own costumes, years went by, those characters left the team, then the new X-Men came in, Wolverine, etc. This was an attempt to get back to the original concept of the team and have teenagers learning to use their powers. So I think their ages range from 14 to about 19. And this is most of the original team, but let's just go through them really quickly, starting with the original members of the team. So we're going to start with who is the protagonist of the film, which is Psyche/Mirage, Danielle Moonstar, played by Blue Hunt in the film. Now, through the first 80 issues of the comic book, she was the main character. She was the co-leader of the team. She was basically, again, the protagonist. I thought they did a great job casting this character, and I had no issue with the way they portrayed her. G.I. Jolie, what did you think of her?
For a first-time role, which I just discovered while I was reading about it. I am blown away. This is amazing. The fact that they even found somebody who, just someone who has indigenous roots to play a native character, like, I'm satisfied with in any way. So
apparently they went through a lot of like time and effort into casting her as well. Like they did really extensive casting. What would you call that? Like they did like an extensive search to find
talent
her.
scouting, kind of scouting maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm glad that they did. One, being a first-time actor is probably really intimidating, but the fact that she's really good is also just like, she's just really good. So the fact that the movie kind of sucked, the acting of the actors made it better.
Right.
So,
and Josh, so you were a fan then?
Yeah, I think she did a pretty good job.
And the thing is we have to comment quickly. X-Men was always known from 1975 on. X-Men made a point to have an international cast of characters, which today the internet calls forced diversity. It's been around forever. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
I wouldn't say that the internet calls it that. I would say Comicsgate.
Yes, comic skaters call it forced diversity.
It isn't forced diversity.
I guess they weren't paying attention to the comics they were reading for 40 years, but that's fine. So on this team, we've got a Native American, we've got a Russian.
I mean, not to mention just like not really getting the whole idea of X-Men in general, but
right. But besides missing the point of the comic completely, right? So the leader of the team is a Native American woman, which is again 1982ish. This is revolutionary at the time. So moving on to the next character. Another character that lasted through the entire 100-issue run of the original series was Cannonball. The cool thing with this character is he is, I don't remember what state he's from, but he's from the Appalachian Mountains area, and he's a miner. And
they said Kentucky.
Okay, there you go, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So he's got a very thick Kentucky accent. In this film, he's played by Charlie Heaton, whom we all know from Stranger Things. I love the guy. He's great. Again, doing an excellent mimic of a Kentucky accent. G.I.Jolie, what did you think of Charlie Heaton as Cannonball?
He kind of didn't really exist in the film for me. He kind of faded into the background. And so, yeah, Kentucky, do you know what? He's a great actor. Again, he's a great actor. He received the kind of role that I complain about a woman or a POC not having to deal with or get. He was barely visible, and so his power was kind of underwhelming as well. Like, he can fly and he's invulnerable while he's flying, but he can only, quote, cannonball himself, which is, I guess, cool. But
don't forget, he's nigh invulnerable when he's blasting, which he mentions in every single issue of the comic book. But anyway, so yeah, he can't be hurt.
Which is weird because we see him with a cast the entire time in the movie, so like that wasn't translated.
I know.
Over to the movie, right?
I know. I was wondering about that too.
But I don't. I think like Jolie said, like I think he did a pretty good job. But he wasn't really in the movie a whole lot, so it's hard to kind of like give a thumbs up or thumbs down. He was good. Yeah, he was fun. Like when he was in the movie, he was serviceable.
Right.
Yeah,
he didn't really do much. Yeah.
In 2015, when they were casting this, like, I've no doubt that the star power of his name is what got him the role, as well as Maisie Williams, who I'm sure we'll talk about next.
Of course we will.
But today, it's almost as it's like, oh, okay, cool. So those are your names for this film.
So, speaking of Maisie Williams, we're going to talk about Maisie Williams next. Wolfsbane in the comic book is a Scottish girl raised in a very strict, I'm not sure if she was Catholic, but a Christian upbringing in Scotland. And that's really her character. She was raised by a surrogate father who I believe was a minister or a priest. I'm not sure. But that was kind of her character, was that she was very sheltered and superstitious, I guess you could say. She always had short hair. She was kind of portrayed as a tomboy the whole time, which they sort of, they portray her that way in this movie. If anyone is interested, the reason I'm still single is because I'm holding out for Maisie Williams. I'm in love with her. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. She's a great actress. She was great in Game of Thrones. She's great in this movie. I thought she was, I don't know, I can't say enough about her. G.I. Jolie, what did you think?
She's great. That's it.
And everything, yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, towards the end, I don't know. How many women can you watch like kick ass in a film? It's like, okay, cool, we get it. I really enjoyed the character of Wolfsbane. The discovery, maybe not even the discovery, but the discovery for us that she represents, a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and that so does Psyche. Also, her maybe it's her already accent, but like her Scottish accent's flawless. I mean, she just does a good job. Again, she's like Charlie Heaton. They're like your ringers for this film. They're your big names and they're your ringers, so you don't really have to worry about them, and you don't really have to worry about a show-stopping performance.
I honestly,
because
growing
they're
up,
gonna give it.
Right, and reading this character, there's no one on earth I can imagine playing this character better than her. But anyway, Josh, what'd you think of Maisie Williams?
I think that she was the strongest actor in the movie. I think that she is the one that did the best job, in my opinion. Yeah, her characterization was really fun. I think that her kind of like quirkiness in like the love story with Moonstar was really fun. I really liked like in particular the scene in like the clock tower of the church. Like some of that like dialogue was really good, and I think she did a great job portraying her. I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more when it comes to like the plot and some of the things that happens to her and how that kind of relates to her being a mutant and being in the LGBTQ community. And but yeah, overall really good.
Okay, now we're going to jump to Sunspot. Again, one of the other original members. In this film, he's played by Henry Zaga, who I've never seen anything before. I don't know anything about this actor.
So Henry Zaga is relatively new. He started his career in 2015, mostly in television, still in television. He's Brad in 13 Reasons Why, just in case any of us watched it.
Okay.
Me?
I did not.
But anyway, that's who he is. He's just, yeah. He'll get away from us because he's not our demographic anymore. They're not casting him for us. They're casting him for other 16-year-old girls.
Well, here's
and
the
boys.
thing. Yeah, I want to talk about the casting quickly. When I was a kid and I first got Marvel Universe and I cracked it open, I looked at all these characters. 99.9% of them were Anglo-Americans with names like Parker and Richards and Pym and whatever. And then we come across this character, this really dark-skinned Brazilian, Roberto da Costa, who mistakenly spoke in broken Spanish, but we'll forgive Chris Claremont for that because he wrote the Dark Phoenix saga. But anyway, so now this is important, is a lot of people have sort of brushed this aside, but they cast I guess he's, light-skinned Latino Brazilian, but I'm going to go ahead and say that if I were to do a film about an American character and the American character was black or African American and I cast Tom Cruise, just because they're American doesn't mean I cast the right person, right? Like, this character was specifically created as Afro-Brazilian, and the character himself experienced racism in Brazil. I guess there's a very strict class system in Brazil based on race. So, to me, this is a whitewash. What do you guys think of that?
Wasn't he supposed to be half Brazilian, half African American? Or am I
Well, he's
misremembering?
Afro-Brazilian, which is an ethnicity goes back hundreds of years, right, into colonialism and slavery. So, it's like saying someone's African American. They've been here 500 years, but they're considered African still.
Right.
So he should be dark-skinned with African features, right? Like in the comic book, he definitely has dark skin. That's the thing. And so it's been said, even by the co-creator, Bob McLeod, not Bob McLeod, but Bob McLeod, that they definitely miscast this. And it's nothing against Henry Zaga. It's just that he ethnically was not the right actor to play this role. G.I. Jolie, do you want to comment on that? Or?
Yeah, I guess here's the thing. They're just going to throw up their hands and say, well, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. We cast a Brazilian actor and he was apparently too light-skinned for our audience. Also, there's renditions of Sunspot in newer comics that are that he should probably also take umbrage with, because they also are depictions of lighter skinned Brazilians. So it's not just this film's fault. It's like a pick your battles kind of thing. I know, as the creator of the character, I get it. There was intention. They wanted to communicate a history that could have been super interesting and really important, except for that they made the character's plot driven by his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend, or whatever happened between him and his girlfriend is what brought his powers out. So it almost renders this point about his heritage like ineffectual, moot. Unless his look, unless the creators were trying to say something, or had they said something, I didn't read the comics in the 80s, but unless they were trying to say something about being Afro-Brazilian,
I believe they were, yeah, because the character does deal with racism in Brazil, so I think that was one of the points of his character, for sure.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's a tough cookie to kind of. It's a tough nut to crack, because they could be saying, by casting this person in this role who is still Brazilian, they could be saying something else about immigration, or, you know what I mean?
The director has gone on the record and said, "I don't care about race." So that's his reaction to the backlash. So.
Okay, well, there you go. Then points about white-washing warranted. If that is what the director said, he doesn't get to say that. So sure, I'm 100% with Bob McLeod. If they were trying to say something about being Afro-Brazilian and the director doesn't give one iota about it, and he should, then no, I'm not for it. I'm not here for it. Mm-hmm. Because the depiction of like beautiful tanned, big busted, bootied Brazilians all over the beaches is one that no one benefits from. But a history like the one that you're talking about, that would have like a vast culture and something important to mine and to bring to the big screen, that he erased that's important. So yeah, okay, I'm with Bob McLeod. There.
Well, and you know what? I'm actually gonna leave magic for last, and I'm gonna jump to Cecilia Reyes, played by Alice Braga, because in the comic book, correct me if I'm wrong, but her character is black.
She's black.
She's African American. In this film, she is played by an actress who I'm not sure whether I think she's
Brazilian too.
She's Brazilian.
Oh, okay.
But she's not black, and it's like again. I'm looking at the picture of the cast, and they're all almost the same color. You know what I mean? Now,
I will say, Rosario Dawson was originally confirmed to play her,
right?
And unfortunately, there were some scheduling conflicts, and she had to drop out. So then, at last minute, the new actress was hired. So I guess there was original intentions. Not that is any defense of whitewashing to begin with, but
sure,
it's just weird that they would be like, they would cast a person of color to play her, and then I guess if she's Brazilian, she would still be a person of color. But like, you know what I mean? Like,
they can't find a black person in America to play this role. I guess I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous, but
right.
According to the president, Puerto Rico isn't part of America, so
right.
Like, because that's where the Dr. Cecilia Reyes, Latin American, from Puerto Rico, a medical doctor who grew up in the Bronx. That's her origin, her cultural origins. So honestly, to me, as long as a POC got this role, I'm happy with it. And like Alice,
better than nothing. Alice
Braga is like a fantastic actress.
Yep, she did a fine job.
Yeah.
That's going to bring us to the final character in the film, probably the most popular character of the comic book, from what I can tell, and this is Magic, who came in a little bit later, not in the original lineup, but this is Magic, played by Anya Taylor-Joy. You know, I know this actress from the movie Witch, which if you haven't seen The Witch, please go and watch it right now. It's an excellent film. She's been in a few other things. She's a great actress. She's beautiful. I don't know if this counts as whitewashing, but she's not Russian. So that's might bug our camera person here, but they got an Argentinian British person to play a Russian. So,
yeah.
But she did do a really good job.
She did an okay job.
I thought she was great in this role. I mean, maybe overacting just a little bit, but just the right amount that I think she brought some life to the cast, and she was really the only antagonist in the cast. So everyone else was kind of even keel, and she was kind of creating all this tension. So I liked her for that. I thought she did a great job. Josh, you don't seem to agree. What do you think?
No, I think that when she works, it's when she's kind of just playing like her own character, like her own version of Magic.
Okay.
And like being that like hero, and the whole like interdimensional stuff really works well with me. But I think when it like doesn't work as well as when she's like that cartoony like school bully.
Right.
That's where it kind of feels off. I mean, like even like using like derogatory terms and calling Moonstar names. Like,
that was forced.
It feels really forced, and it also like makes me not want to like the character. Like nothing really happens to like redeem her, I guess. Like there's never a moment where the two of them like talk it out and like get past that. They kind of just like have a moment where they look at each other, like she hands a Moonstar hands her the puppet, and then that's it. They're just friends again and a team. So it felt a little bit out of place. Like there was no like redemption for her.
If anything, Moonstar acknowledges or calls out her racist name calling, and she goes, "Yeah, that's who I am."
Yeah.
She almost embraces that as part of her character. And like that might have been fine in 2016 or in 1982.
It hasn't aged well. Yeah.
No.
They should have just axed that.
Right.
Yeah, they should like they couldn't have like ADR'd like something else, and like instead of calling her Pocahontas, couldn't they have been like, I don't know, like something about her powers or something, like so it's not about her race. Like it just feels weird. Like even bullying her for either like not being able to control her powers or not knowing why she's even there.
Right. Good point.
Even like if you want to make her just like an evil person, just make fun of like that her she doesn't have a family or something. Like pick on something else. It just feels almost irredeemable it just seems so like almost irredeemable when they start picking on race and then never talk about it again. It's just kind of something that the character does, and then that's it. So that was definitely a part that didn't really sit right with me. Overall though, like her character did some fun things. I think that she has the strongest story, like part in the story besides Moonstar, with her like fears and her past. But I don't know. Besides that like race thing, I think that it would have been a fun character. So just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, I guess.
G.I. you agree?
I 1,000% agree. I didn't realize that the puppet was Lockheed, which who I've seen like in other stories.
I thought that was fine.
Do we want to jump into that?
I just want to quickly touch on it and say I never liked a dragon being an X-Men. To me, X-Men, there should only be one fantastic element in any story. In an X-Men, it's mutants. You can't also have a dragon. I think I tweeted that to Chris Claremont and he disagreed, but what can I say? I mean, it's a puppet and it's also real.
It's an alien, but it's like an alien though. It's not like a dragon.
Well, yeah, but still, an alien. You can't have aliens.
You could say
you
that
have
about
aliens
the
in
Dark
X-Men
Phoenix.
either.
But isn't the Dark Phoenix an alien? that
Well,
it's another being that comes in and like takes over an X-Men. Like I don't know.
I know.
I feel like
they're mixing genres, and I was never a big fan of it. So I like in the movie how it's a puppet, but in the other dimension, Limbo, it's real, right? Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of
I'm not sure. Is it like the puppet that turns into Lockheed, or is it just like a memory like that she kind of holds on to, and that's why she's so attached to it? Or
I think it's a bit of a question. It's like almost like it's in her mind, but it might be real, which I think is really cool. It's better than just we're in limbo. This is a dragon.
I will say, I think that Lockheed works visually better with magic than Kitty Pryde.
Probably, yeah.
Just because Kitty Pryde is like a superhero, where Lockheed has more like knight aesthetics. Like she's got like the armor, and like in the comics, she's got like a full set of armor at some points.
Right.
She's got the soul sword and everything, so it kind of like the dragon and the knight motif kind of goes well together. So
right.
It was just really weird. Has Lockheed and Magic ever like teamed up in the comics?
Not
I don't
really.
think they were ever a duo, right?
No, Lockheed was always with Kitty Pryde, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know in the comics she did have like a stuffed animal, and I think it's Nightcrawler. So I thought that this was.
Oh, right, I remember that. Yeah, okay.
So I thought that this was supposed to be just like an homage to like another X-Men thing, but. Yeah, it was kind of cool to see, and I think it looked really cool. It was really fun when he showed up at the end. So,
yeah, I mean, I stand a Purple Dragon. I have been a fan of Spyro since I was like 16 or whenever the hell he made his appearance on the original PlayStation. So I'm in it. And when he became live and in color and breathing fire, I was there. I was there for that terrifying interdimensional fever dream. So and potentially, and that's the thing, is that like that her powers are so crazy. She's effectively like the best New Mutant, and she's a bitch, and I hate her. And nothing was redeeming about her, and she got all the cool stuff, and it didn't really amount to much.
Which brings us to the plot of the film. The film? So here's the thing is, it's hard to describe this film, but basically you've got these 5 characters institutionalized in this hospital, kind of, psych ward-ish thing. By Dr. Cecilia Reyes. And these characters are supposedly being trained, or Dr. Reyes wants to find out their powers and learn how they work. And there's this hint that she has a superior who has like an agenda, and they assume it's Professor X. But then we find out later in a twist that it's someone else, which we won't say who. We don't want to spoil the film. But basically the film all takes place in this one facility and the grounds around it. And that's it, which is kind of cool. As the film goes on, different things are happening, and we eventually find out that it's... Oh, by the way, they don't know what Mirage's powers are, but towards the end of the film, they reveal, which, as in the comic, she's able to create illusions of your greatest fear, but as happens later in the comic, those fears can become like real, just as they happen in this film, and they're eventually attacked by the Demon Bear, which is... So this is an adaptation of the Chris Claremont, Bill Sienkiewicz classic New Mutant story, Demon Bear. And then there's a couple twists in there, and, you know, it's a lot of character development and back and forth. G.I. Jolie, what was your impression of the plot of this film? Did it feel like an X-Men film? Did it feel like a Hollywood film? Or did it feel like a made-for-TV movie?
I guess the modern equivalent of a made-for-TV movie is a direct-to-Netflix adaptation.
And by that, we don't mean The Irishman. We mean one of those ones that you see, like, way at the bottom of your recommended.
Gems. We don't mean The Irishman. We mean, like, Kissing Booth Part 2.
Right.
That's what we mean. Yeah. Except for it's kind of scary. If that was, I don't know. It's just... I'm having a hard time finding a comparison for it.
At the very least, it's different, but I don't know if that means it's good.
Like, even Sabrina, which is a TV show and not a movie, is like a trillion times better. Which
Yeah.
is, admittedly, if they went that route, like just the Ryan Murphy route, it would have just been like cooler.
That's a
But
good
they
point. There's really no excuse to these days to make a bad looking film.
The visuals didn't bother me. I thought that I think that they were able to kind of portray the characters really well. I will say I know a lot of the effects might have looked a little bit on the cheaper side because they were still doing the effects during the Disney acquisition, and
Right.
they didn't have time to go back to do it. It was just recently that they actually finished up the visual effects and editing of the movie, like I think a few months ago. So up until then, it had just been like a couple of green screens. And I think in an interview, I heard them say something like they're only 10% of the movie was shot with green screens. The rest they tried to do as practical as they possibly could, which could be why it feels a little bit more like TV movie. But I don't know. I think it does not feel like an X-Men movie. And I think that honestly, that's better. I think that, like, I know it's an adaptation of an X-Men book, but I think that the story that they're telling is not an X-Men story. So the fact that they didn't allude to a lot of other things and try to tie in all of these other X-Men characters into the story and bring in all of these like superhero like moments and nods, I think kind of was a good thing for the movie because it really felt like its own thing and it wasn't trying to be something else.
The single location also kind of lent an air of like almost like a stage. It felt like a stage play.
Right, which
It felt very claustrophobic, which is part of getting that horror vibe across.
Yeah.
Which can be fine. But I think there was a sense of like, there's such a thing as having one location and I don't want to say exploiting, but using it like creatively. And this director did not do that. Like, I've seen films shot in one location and there's a way to like shoot the geography. Like there was, I want to point this out. Do you remember the scene near the beginning of the movie when Cannonball and Sunspot are in the kitchen and they're cooking something and Cannonball has his gloves on and he's doing dishes or something? Then 30 minutes later, something else is going on, and then all of a sudden, they're back in that kitchen and they're cooking again. I'm like, you know what? I bet you that was all out of order. I bet you that scene and this scene probably are right after each other, but they changed the order of these scenes in editing, because if not, that's some pretty lame writing and directing where you can't figure out what these characters to do. So let's just have them do the exact same thing again later on in the movie. You know what I mean? It just showed like a really like a lack of imagination. Like, I know they only had one location, but you guys remember the movie Cube? Like, there's a way to shoot like one room in a very creative way, and this film did not do it.
But yeah, it was also pretty unclear of like what this facility was and where everything was. There was like a church here, but it's also supposed to be like a facility.
Right, that was
like
weird
some
too.
of it feels very old, some of it feels extremely modern and like sleek. Yeah, so there was definitely a little bit of confusion there. I'll have to agree, but
let's be clear though. I would rather watch. Let's put it this way: I would rather watch this film than X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men Apocalypse,
Dark Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix for sure. So it's better than those three films. It's not a great movie, but I will give it credit for one thing. If I had the chance to rewatch it, I think I would.
Yeah.
For the characters, I think I would rewatch it for the characters because I want to see these characters again on film. So
yeah, I think this is something that I would want to watch again on a streaming service. Probably something that I put in the background as I'm like drawing or something, just to kind of like because there's at least something there. There's a lot of character studies. Like this entire movie is just the characters really getting to know each other, and they don't ever have to like stop and explain who they are because the story and the plot itself. A big part of the movie was Danny Moonstar not knowing what her power is, while also trying to control it. And her power is like she can control and manipulate other people's fears, and it slowly kind of evolves into her being able to realize people's fears and bring them to life.
Right.
And that's kind of how you are introduced to their backstories and their origin stories of becoming a mutant. And I think that was actually really strong. And the best part of the movie was the fact that they were able to tie the plot and the characters together so well. It's the characters aren't like bound together because they just happen to be locked up in this facility. It's also the fact that like their memories and their deepest darkest secrets are being pulled out of them, and they're having to literally physically fight them, which I thought was brilliant. Yeah, I really love that, and that's refreshing. I don't know if that's really ever been done before. Like, I can't really think of anything that's that like literal about facing your fears.
Well, there's something to be said for having a logical premise for a film, not like Suicide Squad, where they're like, let's assemble a team of people in case we ever need to have a team of people to fight someone. Oh, by the way, one of the members turned evil, so now you guys got to fight this person from your team. But anyway, yeah, so at least it's a step up from that, right? Like, this movie may be weak, but it's not terrible. I think and I'm actually looking it up. It was written by, really quickly, Josh Boone and Nate Lee, directed by Josh Boone. So I think, if anything, the writing was better than the directing. That's my final take on it. The directing was not spectacular, but the writing was okay. Yeah,
it says that they kept the writing room small for this one to keep the ideas in check, and I think that was a really good plan. Because they could have really effed this one up, and they didn't. But they didn't do like an overwhelmingly great job either. It's a good movie full of characters that virtually the general public knows nothing about. So.
Right. So all I can say is, unfortunately, we're probably never going to see these actors again playing these roles, because considering Disney owns Fox now, New Mutants will be rebooted along with all the rest of the X-Men characters. So we waited 15... How long did it take for this movie? 4 years for this movie to come out? 5...
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
5 different release dates. This is it. This is probably all we're going to see these characters.
And you know what's crazy too? They were going to go and do some reshoots for this movie as soon as like 2019, like the end of 2019. They were going to do reshoots. And the director, once he started getting in contact with these actors, he realized that they had aged too much to come back and shoot. That's how long ago they shot this movie. It's crazy.
Can you imagine if they would have cast Sunspot as a 14-year-old, he would have aged. He would have been 18 by now. It would have been outrageous. There's no way they could have gone back.
They might not have even been able to do like reshoots like 5 months later.
Right, exactly.
Let alone a few years. So
just looking at what Maisie Williams, knowing how much she changed because we watched her change before our eyes on Game of Thrones, is that even in this film, she would have looked completely different.
Right.
She still looks young, but she doesn't look that young.
Right.
Yeah, even Anya Taylor-Joy looks completely different.
Right.
Really?
She looks more adult. They still have that young, like, Leonardo DiCaprio baby face thing happening, but you know what I mean? Like, features have moved.
Of course.
And it will be very apparent with some hairlines, etc., etc. It just would not have been believable.
So that will be the last official Fox X-Men film. If we will see the X-Men again, but they'll be rebooted by Disney. Sure. And I can guarantee this, I'll tell you this, okay? Disney might do a better X-Men film than this, but their X-Men or their New Mutants will not be as unique as this. I predict. I don't think Disney will ever do a film that is as unique as Deadpool or Logan or even this. I think their X-Men film will be a generic. We're going to have a few one-liners, and we're going to have some action directed by someone else, and we're going to have a little message at the end, and I don't know. So for that, I'll give this movie points for at least trying to do something different. And I do recommend it because I do want to watch it again. So on those grounds, I will recommend it. G.I. Jolie, do you recommend this film?
Yeah. It's one of the only films at the box office right now.
There you go.
Go see it. If you're sick of hearing about Trolls World Tour, go and see this one.
There you go. Joshua MurrV-ELL, do you recommend this film?
Yeah, if you're bored and don't have anything to do, maybe go like find a drive-in theater around you. I don't know.
Go.
I think under normal circumstances, I might not. It might not be like a full recommend for me, but
okay.
2020 is doing weird things to me. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you live in a Canadian Phase 3 city, make sure there's no community spread and that there are virtually no other tickets sold in your theater. But if you live in Windsor, Ontario, or anywhere in the continental United States, stay out of a movie theater.
That's right.
And just put a mask on, for crying out loud.
So we will be back to review another comic book movie. We're not sure exactly when because the schedules are all up in the air. We were ready to do Wonder Woman. We were ready to do Venom 2. We were ready to do all these movies, but they've all been rescheduled. So you will see us reviewing movies again soon. Not sure when. Again, keep watching. We do every week. We do Here Comes the Spider Cast. We do Flea Market Fantasy. And we will be doing some comic book reviews as well. So stick with us. So there's always new content coming every week from the Comic Book Syndicate. So we will see you again soon. And I guess that's it. So yeah, there you go.
All right,
enjoy.
stay safe. Had around with her. Sorry, my dog is moving around.
Okay, while we're waiting, as soon as you're done this, Josh, as soon as you fix the camera, we'll jump to the plot, okay? Because we're supposed to go 10 minutes, and we're at like 45. A movie about an American, and I cast the character is African American or black, and I cast Tom Cruise. Just because they're American doesn't mean I cast the right person, right? Like this character was specifically created as Afro-Brazilian.